everyone, welcome once again to S.H.I.E.L.D. Discussions. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
And today we're going to talk about the newest episode. I think this is episode 8, The Well. And as I often do, I'm going to start with the episode title. Dan, when I first saw this episode title, The Well, I thought this was going to be another one of those like special S.H.I.E.L.D. places, like the Hub or like the Sandbox. And then it was about this flashback to this horrible traumatic thing that happened in Ward's past, and I was like, oh, so now we're just actually what we're doing now is we're just naming these like Animorph book titles.
And it's the well of anger that's in all of our hearts.
So I was like, oh man, I wonder what the well is gonna be. I wonder what part of S.H.I.E.L.D. that is, and then it turns out that it's an actual well, and I was totally fine. So this was touted up as the big sweeps week. Like a special episode where they were gonna jump off of Thor: The Dark World, and that it was gonna be their tie into that, and it is barely that. I was, and here's the thing. I don't think I would have been disappointed about that had it not been advertised that way. But the difficulty is you get into it, and at the very beginning, it's we're cleaning up from Thor: The Dark World, and then we do an Asgardian story that is in no way whatsoever, as far as I can tell, related to Thor: The Dark World, and it's contrived to the point where we're cleaning up this stuff, and then we fight Asgardian things. That's it. Really? That's what they... Oh, all right.
Yeah, I mean, there could be some sort of potential, and we'll talk about the Asgardian character that shows up in here and what we might think about him, and especially like what the Thor: Dark World movie was based on. Like, I'm thinking about that a little bit more, and if they develop that character further, he could tie into it, sort of. But yeah, the advertising definitely, like watching this episode specifically, it seemed to be like, did you like Thor: The Dark World? Well, if you did, please watch our show, please. You know.
Yeah. And didn't it kind of feel like that watching this, where it was like we're just trying really hard to bring in the rest of the Marvel movie fans that aren't currently watching the show?
Yes, to a degree. I mean, I liked that we're sort of at least pulling from some of the Marvel mythology that already exists within the movies, I suppose. Like, I like that Asgardian stuff was used in here, and it was like more tying into the Marvel universe other than saying, hey, that was like Captain America, or this is like Hulk, you know what I mean?
That's true. I mean, it's a step in that direction. At the same time, it very easily could have been anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Right?
fair.
Like the story that's told here with the staff and stuff. It's another artifact plot, and it's used for character building. The Ward stuff is great. I like that a lot, and we'll talk about the stuff with Melinda May, because I feel like we're stretching that out way too long.
Yeah.
But that's there. There's some character stuff with that's done well. But for the most part, Dan, did it have to be Asgardian? I mean, wouldn't it have been really easy? I'm not saying this is what happened, but if you were to hear that, and again, this is probably not what happened, but I'm just saying, if someone was to say to you, so they took a script and then they made it Asgardian, would you be surprised at all? Because it could have been anything.
No, I mean, it could have easily been the stuff they had in the first episode that made people have superpowers to be angry.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we're kind of going back to that again. And having said all of that, I thought the guest star was fantastic. I thought the guy as the Asgardian was really cool. I didn't call he was Asgardian. I liked that a lot. I did kind of feel like, though, if Coulson hadn't thought to call that guy up, would we have had an episode?
I don't think so. I mean, they might have. I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. has unlimited resources, so they could have found that myth possibly without going to that guy and finding out what was on the staff. I'm not really sure. But, maybe in searching for the staff, they could have eventually run into that guy because he was looking for it too. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, because I'm a little confused about it. Is it that, like, without Coulson showing up, he would have still gone looking for the staff, or did Coulson have to show up to say these people found the staff, and then that was his learning that for the first time, and then he goes and finds it? So it seemed to me like if Coulson had never gone and looked that guy up, these people would have never gotten their hands on all three pieces.
No, you're right. That's exactly what happened. Because it ends up being that it's his staff, and that's why he goes looking for it. You're absolutely right. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, so I just think that's funny. It's like if Coulson, but what I like about it is it's not too contrived that he's involved because Coulson is the reason he goes and looks for it.
Right.
So I mean, the episode structurally is doing a great job with that. The only thing I think is way too convenient is we just happen to be cleaning up stuff from from a movie about Asgard, and then we find this Asgardian staff the very next day, completely unrelated to anything. That's the only thing that I found really silly.
I mean, it it is kind of silly, but then again, I think about the motivations of this gang. I mean, it's their motivations aren't clearly defined, but they're
No, not
just
even kind of, right?
yeah, they're very clearly like worship. They're into this Norse paganism because of the reoccurrence of Norse gods in Europe. Like that's like them coming to London is why all these people are up in arms and having this Norse paganism hate thing for some reason. So I guess it makes some sort of sense that these people would go looking for artifacts after Thor destroys London. That makes some sort of sense, but not the
Okay.
day after. You know, I don't
Yeah,
know.
they don't really build on that. It just seems to me like they probably were looking for this thing for a long time anyway. So I'm not sure that the fact that London got destroyed really even had anything to do with the fact that they finally found it.
Or maybe it was the kind of thing where like they started because they talk about like the gods reoccurring, and that's the reason why they're doing what they're doing. And
Right.
again, I wish that was more defined. I wish because I
Me
feel
too.
like that game could have potentially interesting in talking about um, religious hate groups that worship things that preach benevolence, but they somehow misconstrue them into being some sort of hateful thing, if you know what I mean. I mean that happens with every religion that preaches benevolence. There's extremists that use it as an engine of hate, and I felt like that could have been expounded upon to some degree, but they didn't really do much with them, which I was sort of disappointed with.
Didn't really know what their ideology was in the first place.
Yeah.
Like what got them to that point? Are they just white supremacists? What are they?
Mhm.
I'm not really sure what they are. They seem like just straight up white supremacists that jump onto this thing, but I'm not sure. I
Right.
don't know. So yeah, that was just taking the episode on its on its own terms because like I said. I like a lot of the ideas about power and corruption and the sacrifices you have to make to get power, but then do you really have any control in the first place? All that's really quite good, and is a lot of stuff that's really dealt with in the Marvel movies anyway. So we're kind of furthering those ideas. That's all cool. But probably my biggest issue with the episode on the whole, just story wise, is just that group could have been super interesting, and we don't get enough about them.
Yeah, exactly. And I get the feeling that we're not going to see them ever again. So it's not the kind of thing where like they're setting them up here and we're going to see
Probably
them
not.
again. I felt like
I
they
mean,
were
so
totally
that'd be
throwaway
cool.
this episode.
But they seem, yeah, I'm with you. They seem throwaway, and they seem like just an excuse to get that artifact out in the world, and that can be the trouble with these kind of artifact plots, right? Is that like on the surface it's kind of about some stuff, and at least with our characters it becomes about real things, so that's good. But it's too the conflict is too much of an easy excuse to make bad things happen.
Right.
So that's unfortunate. It didn't have to be that lazy because the rest of it's working. Like I said, the guy Randolph, the Asgardian guy, is interesting. And did you call that he was going to be an Asgardian? I didn't call that.
I didn't call that at all. I was very surprised when that came up. I was very interested in that. And see, I don't know if we'll save this for predictions or comic book references or what, but I really want to talk about that guy and which comic book character he seemed like a lot to me.
Yeah, can we save that for later?
Yeah, sure.
Make everybody wait for that. Okay, let's wait for that. Switching gears for a moment. I love Rage Ward.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I initially sort of resisted it in the hospital. I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those episodes where someone's not acting like themselves the whole time, and then it'll be fixed easily at the end. But I like that, you said a lot that Whedon will set up something that seems typical and then be like, okay, you think we're going that direction? That's not what's happening at all. Like, at the end of the episode, the Asgardian tells him that it'll wear off in like 2 decades. Like this is going to
No,
stay with him for a long
says
time.
he says several
Yeah,
decades. basically means his whole life. And I'm a little bit worried that we're gonna forget about that.
Yeah.
And I hope we don't forget about that, because if you think about it, he and Melinda May are both going to have that. And at first they play it up like Melinda May is able to handle this with no problem, but then you get the thing with the booze at the end, and you realize she's just really good at hiding it. I love that, because at first I went, oh man, really? So we don't know her background. And by the way, they are going to whatever her horrible traumatic past is going to have to blow me away at this point. Because they're staving it off so long, it's driving me crazy. I really hate having a main protagonist in a show that knows so much more information than I do. Like, because the thing is, if this was like, we had one protagonist and then you have some supporting characters, but we don't really get in their heads. Okay, now to be fair, we've not really gotten much into Melinda May's head, but she is part of an ensemble cast. So like, with the thing with Sky and that mystery is okay because she doesn't know where her parents are. So I mean that's okay. Coulson's works, even though I think that's being touted out a little much too. But Coulson's works to a degree because he doesn't know either. You know what I mean? But Melinda May is the one character that's hiding this huge thing, and other characters in the show know what it is, but we don't, and it's driving me crazy. It's gonna have to be amazing, because when they finally tell us what it is, if it's something that that was like. And I don't want to say easily callable because I haven't called it yet. I don't have an idea. But I'm just saying that if you're like, oh, that's all it is, it's going to be a lame payoff because it's been 8 episodes. They're still. Do you feel that way about it too, Dan?
No, I do feel that way about it. I felt like this episode, with that last scene alone with her and the alcohol, did a lot said a lot about her character, and I like that she actually got some moments, because we hadn't gotten like any sort of character moments for her in a little while. Like there was an episode previously I remember talking about you really liking. I forget which numbered episode it was, but really liking what they were doing with her in that episode, and then it had been a little while. She's sort of filled the role of the shadowy mother kind of figure that nobody really knows anything about, but she's sort of like the voice of cold reason, I suppose. Like she's very stoic and that sort of thing. That's been her character so far. And I like that they give a reason why she's able to cope with those sorts of things and be like that in this episode. But like, you're right. She's the only one that hasn't had her backgrounds to any degree like revealed, and they could be setting themselves up for failure. Like if they can't think of anything that's grandiose enough to make her that way, or like maybe it's connected to Coulson for some reason. And that's why it isn't revealed. I don't know. It's a difficult thing to call.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, I mean, I want to give you the other side of this too, because this is a show about secrets,
Right.
and it is a show about people keeping secrets from each other. So Coulson knows stuff about Sky's past that he's not told us or her yet either. Um, so I mean, it gets sticky, right? Because it's like, well, we want to be able to get into these characters' heads, but then there's certain things that they can't tell us. And Lost was sometimes maddening in the exact same way. And yet sometimes you finally get in a reveal, and you're like, well, that was cool to get it in that particular place, but was it really? Was the reveal finally a character-driven reveal where for the sake of the story we needed to get that right then, or was it just a gimmicky thing
Right.
where we're stringing you guys along to make you keep watching? And I feel like it's a little gimmicky right now. I must say. I mean, and again, I can see both sides of it, because it is kind of, well, it's a show about secrets and everybody's keeping things from each other. But I don't know, with the Melinda May thing, she and Coulson both know. And I get the sense that maybe even somebody else might. Maybe Ward knows something about it too, although I'm not sure. Actually, now that I say that, I'm not. I'm
I
not
don't
even
think
sure.
Ward does. I think it's between Coulson and
Just
and
Coulson.
her.
Okay, I don't know. It's just because Coulson. I mean, we got a dream sequence from him at the end of this, man. We get in his head some, and so it's a little strange him keeping as much as he's keeping from the audience. But I don't know. So I'm conflicted about it, because I'm not sure exactly how you do the show without having him keeping things from the audience.
Yeah, that's very true. Um, I hope maybe it'll be related to in some way to Rising Tide or something too. That might be because we haven't seen that recur in a few episodes now.
Not since the bracelet.
Yeah.
Yeah, ultimately, I think the issue is maybe even less just a structural thing of me thinking this isn't how you're supposed to tell stories. I think it's more just that it seems a little thin. It's like we're playing this up like it's really complicated, and I'm gonna be surprised if it's as complicated as it's pretending like it is.
Right.
With both Coulson and her now.
And I think the thing with me is too, like, that character seems interesting enough that I want to be invested in her more than I am, if you know what I mean. Like the actress plays it really well, and I want to know more about her because when she acts, she acts in such a way that like her past is super interesting. Whether or not the show will make it super interesting is a different question, but I wanna roll with it. That's the thing, the place where I'm at, you know.
Are we going to be as invested in her when we finally find
Yeah,
out?
exactly.
Is the question, because the actress is doing a fine job. Did you know that she is 49 years old?
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, she looked great for 49.
I could not believe that when I found that out. Anyway, what else do you want to bring up, Dan?
Uh, I can't think of anything else general overview wise. I think this was an episode that had a lot to do with character kind of stuff. It wasn't, heavy on the ideas or necessarily layered or deep like the last episode, like we had got into and talked like almost an hour about it. I don't think we'll be talking that long about this one. I felt like it set up a lot of things, especially with Ward's backstory. Like we know what happened there, but we don't really know the extent as to why it affected him necessarily. Like I feel like we only see half of that scene. Like we see him putting the rope down and don't know what else happens that made that such a defining thing for him. And Melinda May too. We know that like what she's dealing with is so terrible that she has to, drink her troubles away, but we don't really know why. It sets up a lot of things. So it'll be interesting to
Yeah,
see.
yeah. Here's the difference between those two things. With Melinda May, she knows everything about her past, and we don't. The difficulty with the Ward thing is, I felt like the episode was keeping it very ambiguous as to how much Ward remembers about the well thing.
Yeah, because he repressed it a lot. I got
He
that
repressed,
impression.
yeah, because he tells the Asgardian guy that that the stick unlocked that memory,
Mm.
meaning that he didn't have it, except that we had that thing with him and Sky where he mentioned something about his brother, so he knows something horrible happened to his brother, but he doesn't remember exactly what it was. So at first, I had a different second viewing on this one, Dan. We always watch these twice, and the first viewing, I made a note where I was a little bit irritated that we didn't get more about that past, because I was like, all we're given is that some bully wouldn't let him rescue his brother and then he died. That was it. That's all we know. And then the second time around, I thought, I think that's all Ward knows.
Hmm.
I think that's all he knows. I mean, that's why that's all we know. So it's not a criticism. I'm curious, but also, how interesting is it ultimately? Like, what more could there be? Where if we found out all of it, we'd be like, oh my goodness, right? What else? What else would there be?
Right.
I mean, you don't know. The thing is, you don't know everything surrounding it, and you kind of want to, because it feels like a weird situation. But then, if you ever got all of it, would it really be worth the wait?
I'm not sure, and I didn't even know definitively when I watched it. Maybe I missed something. But did they actually show the brother die? Like, was that supposed to be the? I mean, that would be where I would logically think the scene would go. But he puts the rope down. I didn't get the impression that it was necessarily suggesting definitively that he died. I
Huh?
wasn't
I
sure
thought I thought it was.
because he throws the rope down, and that's where it ends. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if Ward gets thrown in the well and the rope is in there, how do they get out and how does Ward survive? There's got to be more to that scene.
Yeah, you make a good point. But why would it be so traumatic if his brother didn't actually drown? And
Exactly.
especially because he's got that moment where he says, "Oh no, he's gonna drown." And he almost says the word "drown," and
Mhm.
then the other kid says, if you save him, I'll throw you in there too. I got the sense that he puts the rope down because it was too late. But you're right. We don't actually see it. We don't see him
Right.
drown. It's really ambiguous.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're no, you're absolutely right. So the question is, is the episode clear enough about the idea that it is that ambiguous to Ward, or does Ward know things we don't know? That's the question. Um, I'm fine with it if that's all Ward has. If that's all he has. But the thing is, would it make him? I mean, I guess the stick just makes you enraged, but like it's the memory that gets unlocked. Because remember that line at the beginning of the episode, the rage is already in you, and the idea is it unlocks that memory, and that's the reason that you're so enraged. If that's all he has, I feel like I would be more confused than angry.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just sort of
But I'm
like
just not sure what we saw. Yeah.
Maybe it's the sort of I don't really know the psychology of repressed memories, but I think maybe it's the sort of thing where like if you have repressed memories, you still feel the emotion that's attached to them, even if you don't remember the memory to every degree, if you know what I mean. I'm not
I
sure
think
how all that is supposed to work. I just don't know as much about it as I should, I guess. Um, but I think it's an interesting thing is for this episode to be talking about how the two best spies on the ship, I mean, Coulson, Melinda May, and Ward all have to repress memories from their past to function as people.
uh,
I think that's an interesting idea.
well, with the exception of Melinda May, she doesn't repress.
Right.
That's the
But she at
reason.
least has to put up a front about it, if you know.
She does have to put up a front. You're right, but I think that is the big difference between them, right? Is that you get I mean, like there is a big connection made between these characters now, but the big thing with Ward and Coulson is that they both have memories that they're not allowed access to,
Right, right.
for in one way or another. Whereas Melinda May has to put up this wall, but as she says, she says I think about it every day. Like she remembers all that, which is why she's able to put up the front she does at the end. But I'm still really happy that it's not just straight up, nope, the rage thing, not a problem for me at all. No, it is.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that it is. You had to have that final scene with them walking into the hotel room. If you didn't have that, the episode's not nearly as good. It doesn't work. If they hadn't left that, like if they'd cut that or if they'd never written that, I think I would like the episode a lot less than I do.
And I in fact wrote that down as my best moment. That was, I mean, it was a small moment, but that I think said the most about her character and possibly the repercussions for Ward's character moving forward. I like that we're giving Ward a problem that he talks about that in the previous episodes, problems that he can't hit, and it's not even something that he can like protect other people from. That's his big thing. He wants to protect other people, but now it's something that he's going to have to protect himself from, which is an interesting problem for him. So the interesting position to put that guy in, I guess.
Sometimes you get an ensemble show like this where you have one or two characters that feel like your protagonist or your dual protagonist, and then you have the supporting characters that will occasionally get an episode and they'll become a protagonist for their own show, but for the most part it's about these two people and or this one person. You and I have talked about this at length with the Star Trek original series. It's about three people, but often it's about one or two people. But then it's got all these other people in it. The beginning of this show, I thought our main character, our two big characters, were Coulson and Sky, and everybody else was kind of in the background. Now it's switching around a little bit, where I think we have a triad, and to a degree, and I think our triad. Now that I'm thinking about this, I think our triad, and we'll see if this continues later, is Coulson, Ward, and Sky, because if you look at everybody else in the show, nobody has made as many profound personal connections to everybody else in the show as Ward has, and then as Coulson has. Coulson has a very important connection to each of these people, but then so does Ward now. After we got the Fitz episode last time, and now he's made this major connection with Melinda May, where they went into that room and drank together. He has a huge connection, and he's got that moment with Fitz or with Simmons at the beginning. He's got this huge important connection to everybody in the show now, and so does Coulson, but they're the only two. But then Sky is really important because she's the outsider. So I really think we've got a bit of a triad going on.
And I think Sky has an important connection with everyone, with the exception of Melinda May at this point.
With everybody but Melinda May. You're absolutely well. Does she with Fitz so much?
Well, I mean, they're sort of the two people she hangs out with on the ship most of the time. Like we saw them hang out in the previous episodes and that sort of thing. I mean, not that like they've gotten any huge like profound character moments or anything, but she at least like is friends with them, I guess.
Well, and to be fair, it's not like well, I was going to say that Ward hasn't had a huge with Simmons, but I guess he, not just that little thing at the beginning. He jumped out of an airplane to save her. I mean, yeah he kind of does. Yeah. Oh man, that's interesting, isn't it?
Very cool. I didn't even think about that, but I think you're right.
I don't know if that'll continue moving forward, but I do think right now those are our big, most important characters in a whole lot of ways. But I do think that it's going to continue to solidify more into an ensemble cast. I mean, if Fitz and Simmons continue to be more and more important and more likable, and so like it's not like They're not Chekhov and Sulu, where all they do is sit around and say "I Captain" and
Right, yeah.
or Threes, or well, I had a couple other little things I wanted to mention. Let me look at my notes here real quick
Sweet.
because I had a couple of things I wanted to mention. I really dug this idea with Randolph of his perspective on life living amongst humans. The idea of because I'm immortal and nobody else where I live is, if anybody ever has a huge problem with me, all I have to do is wait around for them to die.
Yeah, exactly. It's an
I thought
interesting, cynical kind of position to have, but it's true in his case, you know?
Yeah, but for him, it wouldn't be so cynical, right? I mean, like, it's someone inside. I don't know. It's someone. It's an insightful look into what immortality would be like, and I really liked that idea. And I've seen that in a couple other places, but it doesn't come up very much. There's a what is the name of that movie? There's a movie written by Jerome Bixby that came out a few years ago that I really love. It's on Netflix. It's on the tip of my tongue. It has the word Earth in it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's this movie about this guy who is immortal and claims the to be the real life inspiration for the air quotes myth of Jesus Christ,
Hmm.
and that like he was actually Jesus, and he tells all of his scientist friends that he was actually that he's been alive for all these years, and he talks about that. He talks about the idea that if you're in a place for a while and then and then you start having huge problems with people, all you have to do is move along, and eventually they're all gone.
Yeah. When I said cynical, I sort of meant it in the way that he was like talking about the first person that he loved, and like it seems like he's gotten to the point where he doesn't like feel emotionally attached to significant others anymore. Like he's hitting on every girl that he sees in here because he's like, oh, I mean, they're not going to be around forever anyway, so I don't have to form deep emotional connections with these people because they're all just going to leave me at the end of the day anyway. And he doesn't want to hurt himself in that way anymore, if you know what I mean.
I just remember the name of that movie. It was called The Man from Earth. Do yourself a favor and
Okay,
watch
cool.
that, Dan. I think you'd love it. Anyway, um, I'm glad you mentioned that because it reminds me of my other big note
Sure.
about something I thought was really cool, and that is there's this neat foreshadowing moment where when Coulson walks into his office, to the Asgardians guy's office, he has a line. His very first line gives away what he is, but you don't know it yet. The very first thing he says is something along the lines of, "I thought I was teaching mythology, but I guess I'm a history teacher."
Oh, yeah, that's true. And then he asks
And
that girl if they're still on for dinner, too, which plays into the stuff he does later as well.
exactly, but that's a little more cryptic. The first line comes right out and tells you what he is.
That's
That's really interesting because I mean, like, yeah, he's not teaching mythology because he knows everything. He was there. What he's teaching is history. Oh, I love that. That was neat.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah, you're right. That's awesome.
That's neat. Let's go into best moment, worst moment. What was your favorite moment,
My
Dan?
favorite moment was
Oh, you list.
the hotel scene with the alcohol. Like you said, I think that made the episode much better. I think we definitely needed that. Like, out of all the scenes in the episode, I think that was the essential one. As short as it was, I think it was so effective in conveying things about Melinda May's character. It's great stuff.
That's my top two. That's my favorite one too. So I'll throw in a second one. My runner up is Coulson saving Randolph's life by just immediately thrusting into his chest and grabbing his heart. I think that says something about that character. And I also really kind of like the little tiny mini or tiny and mini Dan. I like the little short character arc that we get for Simmons, where she takes that and says, maybe I should just take the plunge and do things that seem scary when she finally picks up the phone and talks to her mom and dad. That might seem a little corny. It's it's a very TV thing to do, but I don't know. I sort of kind of like that.
Yeah.
I also thought it was really funny that on her cell phone when her mom calls it says mom and dad.
Yeah.
I like. Did you have a worse moment, Dan?
Uh, there wasn't any moment that I like specifically really disliked and was like cringing through it. But I think the
Neither.
scene that when I was watching it, I had the most negative reaction to was when I was talking about before Ward in the infirmary, where I thought it was going in a really typical place and it ended up being different than what I thought it was going to be. Um, I mean, the actor played the scene well enough, but like that scene taken out of the context of the rest of the episode was probably my least favorite of all of them.
I didn't really have one. I guess broadly, I wasn't like I said earlier. I wasn't super in love with the scene where they first find the staff, but the scene was good. It was just a matter of I thought this was about cleaning up the Thor, Dark World. I don't understand how we got to this. How is this in any way whatsoever a connection to Dark World? If anybody noticed something where these things are more connected, please let me know because I didn't pick up on it. I'm confused. Anyway, Dan, what big ideas did you notice? I think this one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, basically like the corruption of power. You know, the people who pick up the staff and they're never the same after wielding that kind of power. It's kind of the, typical representation of that idea. I mean, not that I didn't enjoy it, but it's I've seen it before. That's basically what I thought was going on in the episode. Big idea wise, I guess. Did you notice anything else?
That was the big one I had too, Dan. I also let's see, did I write anything else down? Obviously there's some magic versus science stuff. If we're gonna do things connected to Thor and the Asgardians, we've got to talk about that a little bit. That moment where anything Sky doesn't understand, she immediately assumes must be magic, but then it really is magic.
Yeah.
I mean, what else? As far as we can tell. And then obviously the definition of God. What like even if you understand it, at what point can a person become a god? And with the whole control and power thing, I did like I do always dig and like you said, I've seen this before, but this is something I always latch onto, which I think made me like the episode more. I always really latch onto this idea of people sacrificing a certain kind of control for another kind of control, and then do they have any control at all? It's like I'm now super powerful because I have super strength, but with these people, that power is controlling them. They're not controlling that power. So do they have any control at all? They're now just being used as a vessel by the thing that they're glad they have. So it's an inferiority complex. It's like I feel important now because I have I feel like I have relevance because I have this power. But you don't have the power. The power has you. And I mean, like they're trying to use it to further whatever goals they have because they're not very
Right.
clear about what the goals are. but but at the end of the day, they're being driven by their rage. They're not able to use that rage. So, do they have any more? It seems to me they have less control than they had before they had the superpower.
Right.
So,
That's something I've always liked too. I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan, and that's definitely in there. That with the Sith and their sort of culture, Darth Vader, that sort of thing. So yeah, I agree with you.
well, and
It's
it's a
cool.
huge classic science fiction
Oh yeah.
trope, dating all the way back to Frankenstein. Playing with technology or power or magic, whatever it is that you don't, well, not magic because there's not a lot of that in science fiction. You know what I mean?
I
Playing with
know what you mean.
science you don't understand, but we can do this with magic also. This is where those two things
Like,
tend to converge. Guest stars. I'm trying to look up this guy because I forgot to write it down. This guy that played Randolph, Peter McNichol. Did you look him up?
I
I I thought I recognized him from something. It looks like he's done a lot of Grey's Anatomy. It looks like he's done some numbers. He was Doc Ock in Spectacular,
was he really
apparently.
the animated
Yeah,
show?
yeah, and he was also Kirk Langstrom in the Batman. So that means he got to be Man-Bat, unless that guy never turned into Man-Bat in that show. I didn't watch all of it.
Ooh, well, if he's involved with Spectacular Spider-Man, that's awesome because that show is the best Spider-Man thing outside of the comics. It's awesome.
Fantastic. He is who I thought he was.
Yeah.
The place I recognized him from is Ghostbusters 2. He's the guy with the accent that is used as the vessel for the bad guy in the picture.
Oh,
He's the
that's
guy
cool.
that's hitting on Dana and that. I thought that's who that was. That's who that is.
That's awesome.
Oh, very cool. I thought I recognized that guy. Okay, cool. Well, point for Captain Logan. Yeah,
Nice.
good stuff. And he was also in a season of 24. I don't remember that character. Tom Lennox. It was what season? Let's see here. Sorry, I'm being irritating now. Season 6. I didn't like season 6. I don't remember that season very well. It wasn't that great. Anyway, so apparently he was in that. The other thing I wanted to mention in this section, this isn't a guest star, but this is directed by Jonathan Frakes, who has done lots of directing since TNG. But Jonathan Frakes was, of course, Commander Riker in Next Generation, and one of my favorite actors. But has done lots of TV directing and things like, and some movies too. He did in the early 2000s, he did a kids movie called Clock Stoppers. And he also was the showrunner and I think maybe even one of the co-creators of Roswell.
Oh, cool.
Um, anyway, so Dan, did you have a favorite line?
My favorite line was the Melinda May line where she says, "I see it every day." When Ward's talking about, how does she deal with the stuff that was unlocked inside of her by the staff, basically just saying that, it's something that she has to deal with every single day, thinking about it, and she's just a more experienced spy than Ward. She's got many more years of experience on him, and that's why she's able to put up such a good front about it. I thought that and the alcohol thing were the most important character things for her, so that's why I picked it.
I guess it's weird that I'm referencing this line, given that I didn't think that the tie-in to Dark World was all that great. But I did like it when Coulson said, "Just for once, I wish Thor and his people would send down the god of cleaning up after themselves."
That would be nice.
And that's funny because Norse myth, I mean, really that in Greek and Roman, like they have gods for everything else. It seems like there should be a god for cleaning up after yourself. That's good. Comic references, quite a few more than normal. The first one, did you catch Vishnu?
That's a Hindu god, isn't it?
Yeah, but also a Marvel character.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I looked it up. This exists, and because as soon as she says, well, it seems like Vishnu ought to be something that really exists. I'm looking this up to find out if you're right, and I looked it up, and I've never seen it before, but there is a villain based on that character in Marvel called Vishnu.
That's cool.
So that's cool. I don't know anything else. I didn't look any further than that. Seconds of research, but it exists, Dan. The clearly the whole Berserker staff thing. They're thinking Berserker Rage. I mean, it's we have Rage all over this, so we're using the word Berserker. That's a major, huge Marvel thing, both with Hulk and with Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then a couple of movie things. Did you catch that Fitz is using Tony Stark's holotechnology in this episode?
Oh, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Yeah, he was.
That's Stark Tech. I mean, like Stark seems to have built that himself. That's got to be Stark Tech, and I don't think we've seen him use that anywhere else in the show.
I don't think so either. That's really cool. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's awesome.
Yeah,
Ghost.
I nailed that one. And also, the staff is made part. No, not the staff. Sorry. We're told that the interrogation room is partly made out of vibranium.
Yes, which is the metal in Cap's shield, which is cool. Like that.
Did you catch anything else?
Should I talk about the Asgardian character here?
Yeah, let's do that. We'll use this to segue into predictions. Dan has an idea of someone that this guy could be, although let's not give our hopes up because the odds aren't great.
No, the odds aren't great, and he's not characterized exactly the same way. He's a little bit different, but he has this line where Coulson and Ward are basically trying to get him to help them fight this gang of Norse supremacists, I guess we'll call them.
The Norse supremacists.
And he says,
please bring them back so we can call them that again.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And he just says, I'm a pacifist now. And I look at him and I'm like, this guy's overweight. He's got gray hair. He's a pacifist and he's an Asgardian. That sounds like all of the requirements needed of Balder the Brave and Walter Simonson's run before he, becomes the king of Asgard in that series of comics. And he's not as noble and benevolent as Balder is by any means, because he's like trying to sleep with anything that comes into contact with him in here, and he's a little bit more of a cynical person, I think. Well, Balder is kind of cynical, but in a different sort of way, in that he doesn't view like the Asgardian culture as worthwhile and all. There's all kinds of different things going on in the comics, but I'm thinking to myself, like, could this guy be like pacifist Balder the Brave? Like, how cool would that be? Because they never give his name, like his Asgardian name. He has an Earth name.
that was something that I was really surprised by, that they left that out. I kept going, are they going to tell us who he is? You know, what his name is? And so I thought the same thing you did, and I wonder if it's not one of those things, because don't you feel like this show is tiptoeing around a lot of things because it doesn't know what the plans are ultimately going to be for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so they don't know what they can get away with. We don't know if there's going to be a third Thor movie. We don't know if we're going to do much more with Asgardian stuff. So they might be thinking. I mean, I think it's unlikely that they actually thought Balder when they wrote him, but they might have. And if they did, it might have been like, okay, well, we'll create this guy that could be Balder. We'll pick an actor who's a pretty well-known character actor. He's a good actor. He's been in movies. Keep in mind, he's been in movies. He's got a long film career as well as a TV career. So maybe he could get cast in a Thor movie or something. And if Marvel decides they want to use Balder, we'll ask them if we can give him this guy, and we'll make that connection. And if they never do it, then he's just this guy that we came up with
Right.
on our show. So like he could kind of teeter back and forth and be either one.
And you get the feeling too, like, um, when they ask him if he's ever met Thor before, he kind of like really overreacts to it. I mean, I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily there, but like it could be him like lying. You know what I mean? He lies. He says that he was like breaking stones for generations and stuff like that. Um, but Baldur's the third son of Odin. Like if they introduced him in this show, like that'd be really cool. I would love to see that sort of thing happen.
At the same time, I do kind of like the idea of, well, as Guardians have random minor people.
Yeah,
They're not
that's
all,
true.
you know. But yeah, the other thing too is they made a really big deal out of making sure he didn't die at the end.
Yeah.
And that makes me think that he's coming back, and that makes me think that he's more important than anybody else, than anybody realizes. And that seems like a major Whedon thing to do too. Whedon's done this a lot with characters that he'll introduce, and you won't think they're anything. I'm thinking of Lauren from Angel, where like he's just like the now to be fair, this wasn't planned, but like he's just a lounge singer demon, and then he ends up like one of the most important characters in the show. So I can totally see that kind of thing with this guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Other predictions. I have questions more than I have predictions.
Sure.
The big one is that guy's coming back. That was the big one. Are both or either of Mays and Coulson's pass that we're wondering about? Are we going to get them by mid-season, or are they going to stretch it all the way out to the end, Dan?
I think we have a good possibility of them breaking it up. Like, it's not going to be like final episode, the revelation for everyone's past, because that'd be stupid. Like, I think they don't do that. But like, I feel like we'll get one for the mid-season finale, either Sky, Melinda, or Coulson's past.
Yeah.
I have a feeling Sky's will be the one that will go out until the end of the season. I have a feeling that's the one that we'll get little hints about.
That one's fine though, because at least she doesn't know. I mean, I know Coulson kind of
Yeah,
knows something, but it's one of those things where he has to keep it a secret. So that's an arc where we're with Sky for that.
right.
We're not with. I don't know that I was real thrilled with the little stinger at the end, because I don't feel like it revealed much of anything. You know what I mean, with Coulson dreaming about Tahiti. Now it does tell us that he at least remembers Tahiti,
Mhm.
even though clearly it didn't actually happen. And I like how fake it looked, by the way.
Yeah, it
Like
did
that.
look way too sterile.
But I don't know, the whole like rising horror music, and then he wakes up in his bed. I don't know, because it didn't really tell us anything. It was like, oh no, I still feel weird about Tahiti. Like it didn't tell us anything. Well, we knew all that already.
Well, I mean, it gives you another clue into the fact that it might possibly be fake, which, like, if you're paying attention, they've been playing it up like that the whole time. But I guess for the people that are, like, not getting that, I don't know.
Well, and yeah, and that's fair. We're studying this show. We watch it twice a week, and we talk about it at length. So for us sitting here thinking about this a lot and doing a full 45-minute show every week, we're looking at that going, well, yeah, of course it's fake. We knew that already.
Right.
But,
And
but
we're
but somebody
Marvel fans that
watching
are
this,
like, oh, he's probably a life model decoy. Other people, I
yeah,
don't know what he is, you know?
yeah. If you're watching it casually, you might be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But if you're me or Dan, you're just like, I knew that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, let's go on to trivia questions. Dan, what was your trivia question from last week, and what was the answer?
My trivia question from last week is Norman Osborn assigns Victoria Brand and a supervillain to go track down the Hulk because he has has a list of people that he wants to eliminate the Marvel Universe when he becomes the leader of Hammer, and I asked which supervillain that was, and the answer was Moonstone. She was posing as the Dark Captain Marvel, or not Miss Marvel at the time.
Wow,
It's cool stuff.
that's a little obscure. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, not super obscure,
Right.
but everybody would know that. That's good. I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah.
My question from last time was what kind of cheese was on Fitz's sandwich from last episode? What cheese was it? It was buffalo mozzarella. If you only said mozzarella, you were not specific enough. You needed to say buffalo mozzarella. And I'm not sure anybody actually came up with the exact correct response because I got a lot of mozzarella. Nope, buffalo mozzarella. Dan, what was your question for this week?
My question for this week is S.H.I.E.L.D. is the organization that protects us from earthly threats in the Marvel Universe. What's the name of the organization that protects the Earth from threats out in space? There's a sister organization to S.H.I.E.L.D. and what is the name of it?
Good stuff. Dan, your questions have been great, man. Well
Oh,
done.
thank you.
My question for this time, again, mine are always about the episode, is where does Coulson suggest Randolph settle down at the end of this episode? Where does he suggest Randolph go settle down? Actually, the second place, because at first he's like, you should go. He doesn't say Tahiti specifically, but at first he's like, you should go like relax and he's like, well that would be boring. And he's like, well then you should go to this place. And my hint on this is it's a place that Coulson has talked about before. I thought it was kind of a cool reference. Do you know what it is, Dan?
I think I remember the region that he mentioned, but I don't remember the exact city
Okay.
or what he said.
Talk afterwards. It's kind of cool. And it also has something to do with a prediction I was going to make, but I decided not to mention it because it would have given away the answer to this. So, anyway, well, everybody, thanks always for listening to S.H.I.E.L.D. Discussions. We'll see you again next week with a brand new episode on Friday. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
See you later.